Hey guys, welcome. My name is Caitlin and today we're going to be doing a review of RightStart Math Level C. If you've been around here for a while, you know I absolutely love RightStart Math. In fact, I have a whole entire playlist with all of my videos I've made about it that I will link so you can check that out. This is the math that we have used since my oldest was in kindergarten. So his first year we did level A for kindergarten, his second year we did level B for first grade, and his third year we have done level C, so roughly second grade. I know as homeschoolers, grade levels are kind of fluid, but as far as like where he would be in public school, he is second grade age, and so we would consider level C kind of his second grade material. I've also now started my second child on it. He just did level A for kindergarten for his first year, and I still love this program. 3 years in, I love it even more. I'm able to now, every year and every book that we do, I'm able to see the progression and see how it all ties together. And I'm just thrilled that I found RightStart before we started homeschooling and that we have used it. I've just been really, really happy with it. So let's talk about level C specifically. Level A was, just a lot of basic number facts for small children, for kindergarten or even preschool, depending on the maturity level and the, intellectual level, whatever, of your child. Level B, which like I said, we did in first grade, that kind of had an emphasis on adding. So lots and lots of adding in level B. Level C, kind of an emphasis on subtraction. There's way more covered in level C than just subtraction, but if you're gonna pick like one big main skill that gets learned in level C, I would say that is subtraction. And just like with level B, it's not just subtracting small numbers, but RightStart teaches it in a way that you can, from pretty early on, subtract large numbers, 4 and 5 digit subtraction, just like they did 4 and 5 digit addition in level B. So subtraction is kind of maybe like the large new skill that we spend a lot of the time with. And I was just so impressed. If you've watched my level B review, I shared some about how, adding was kind of a difficult concept for my son, and it took us a lot of extra practice. And, I had to trust the process because he just didn't get it right away. But after doing it multiple different ways, we did finally get it, and he did really well. Subtraction was a lot easier for him, actually. And I think it's not because subtraction was easier than addition. I think it's because by that point he was more used to kind of the flow of it, and it's very similar to what we learned about addition last year. And so he picked it up very quickly. It was a little bit of a learning curve for me because RightStart teaches subtracting multi-digit numbers differently than how I was taught it. RightStart starts you doing subtraction left to right. And so you actually start at the hundreds or the thousands, depending on how large your number is, and kind of look ahead to see where you need to give numbers instead of borrowing, which is what we called it when I was in school. It's really the same idea. It's the same thing that they're doing. They just approach it differently. So my son picked it up very easily. It was not a big deal. I kind of had to wrap my head around it because it's just different from how I have done it my whole entire life. So it's a little bit of a different, unique approach, but we're getting the same answer there at the end. And it just, as everything RightStart does, it just helps them think more mathematically and actually think about what is it that we're doing. It's not just like a rote, like, oh yes, I'm supposed to cross this out and put a 1 here or whatever, like that. That's the way I learned it. But instead they're really thinking about what are we doing? What are we actually doing with these numbers, which I love. Anyway, so some of the other topics that are covered in RightStart Level C. The first chunk of the lessons are, there's a good amount of review, especially reviewing adding and adding multi-digit numbers. So if your child maybe didn't completely master it after level B, or you've taken a break for the summer and they're coming back and they forgot a little bit, don't worry too much about that. It does continue to get reinforced in level C. So there's that. there's several topics that are just introduced a little bit, sprinkled in here and there, things like multiplication and division, negative numbers. They're just kind of touched on, but not like a deep dive into those. There's some area and perimeter, quite a bit of measurement using the rulers. There are some topics that we learned in A and we learned in B, and we're now learning them more in C. So things like fractions, we take that a little bit deeper than we did those first two levels. Clocks, we did that in A and B. I don't remember specifically what they learned in B, but I think it was maybe they learned like half hour up to that. Like they could learn, like they could tell time to the whole hour or to half hour. Well, in C, we do, 15 minutes, 5 minutes, increments of 1 minute. We talk about quarter till, quarter after. So it just takes that topic, takes that particular thing and goes a little bit deeper. Same with money. In the previous levels, we learned what the coins were called, how much the coins were worth, that kind of stuff. This year, it goes deeper and they spend time making change, and they spend time, making different combinations of the coins to make a certain amount of money. So it just takes that topic and learn a little bit more about it. There's a bit about tangrams. There was one little section, I want to say it was small, maybe like 3 lessons, but it was Roman numerals, and my son loved that section. I don't know specifically why he liked that so much. I'm guessing it's because he's very into history, and so he's seen Roman numerals in books that he has read and that kind of stuff, and so he really loved learning the Roman numerals. So that was a fun little section that we did. There's also a really big chunk of drawing, using the drawing tools. So just in case you're new to RightStart, I'm guessing if you're watching this video, you're probably familiar with it, but just in case, RightStart Math comes with, when you buy the curriculum, you get the book and the workbook for whatever level your child is going to be on, but you also buy this manipulatives kit that is got all these manipulatives in them, and it is designed to be used from level A, kindergarten, all the way up through middle school. I can't remember how far RightStart goes. It doesn't go all the way to 12th grade, I know that, but anyway, so it's full of these manipulatives, and you use them throughout the year, through your lessons, that kind of stuff. So this year, there was a lot of drawing using the drawing tools. So these 2 triangles and the T-square. So there's several lessons where they use 1 or 2 or 3 of these to draw different things like horizontal lines, vertical lines, dividing up equilateral triangles. They learn how to make a star inside a pentagon, that kind of thing. So your whiteboard, which is the dry erase board, that is also your drawing board. And so what they'll do is use this whiteboard and a worksheet that comes in the workbook that I would just tear them out and use 2 pieces of Scotch tape on the whiteboard to keep it from sliding. And then the drawing tool, you can't see it on the video, I'm sure, but it has like a little bitty notch. So you put it next to the whiteboard, and that makes it flush with the whiteboard, and then it kind of holds it on there like a ruler. And then you can use your triangles or whatever, a ruler, we do use that some as well, to help you draw your lines. So this gets introduced in C and used quite a bit. So that's fun. My son really enjoyed those drawing lessons. They're, a little more geometry based, a little more art based. So depending on if your child is more of an algebraic thinker or more of a geometric thinker, they may really enjoy this, if that's kind of more their thing, their cup of tea. All right, so a few things about C that are maybe a little bit different from A and B. There are more worksheets in C. Now, we're still not talking the amount of worksheets that you're going to get from a more traditional math curriculum. RightStart still is in C game-based, manipulatives-based, and only some worksheets to reinforce. But there are more than there were in A and B, and rightly so. Your child is getting older. They're doing harder concepts. They're probably able to read for themselves where perhaps they couldn't in A and B. So there are some more, but this is the workbook. It's not huge. And most of the worksheets, well, I won't say most. A lot of the worksheets are kind of like puzzles. So it's not just a page of facts to do. Sometimes it is, but a lot of times there's also, you know, some sort of puzzle aspect to it. Or like I mentioned with the drawing, you know, a lot of them were the drawing, you know, the drawings that they would then use the drawing tools to work on. So there are more worksheets, but not an overwhelming amount. There are still lots of games, just like with A and B. I mean, I didn't count to see like if there's more or less. I'd say maybe about the same amount. There's also, I don't remember this in B. I definitely know it wasn't like this in A, because I just did A at the same time I was doing C. But there's more assessments. So every so many lessons, I didn't count, but we'll say maybe 20 or so, there is a review and an assessment. I think B had maybe like 2 reviews and assessments in between the beginning of the year and the final at the end, if I'm remembering correctly. And then C has quite a few more, not a ton, but you know, it's definitely, they're more frequent than it was with B and with A. And then of course there are the end of the year assessments at the end, but I actually prefer that, because I like to kind of take that pause there after a unit. They don't call them units, but as a former teacher, I think of them as units. You know, you do a unit of lessons and then you take a test. So to kind of pause and do a review and an assessment and then see. Now, what I do and what a lot of other RightStart Math parents do is the review and assessment are pretty much the same thing, just with different numbers. And so I would usually just have my son do the review. And if he aced it, we didn't do the assessment. If he struggled, then we would talk about it, work on it, and then maybe do the assessment or part of the assessment, just to make sure he got those concepts. So you as the parent can do however it works for you, but feel free to skip if it's the exact same thing. You don't want to have to do it twice. You know, like you can be flexible like that. When I'm doing my curriculum reviews, I always try to be very honest and share with you, of course, what I like about the curriculum, but if there's anything that I dislike, I share that as well. So far, all the curriculums that we've used, I have been overwhelmingly very, very happy with, including this one. There's always just like a few small things. For example, every level, RightStart has 1, or in this level 2 lessons that they want you to use the calculator, and I do not care for that. There was like 1 in A and 1 in B, and I think 2 in level C, where it was like, you know, get the calculator and do XYZ with it. I don't like introducing the calculator at that age. My kids have actually been playing with calculators since they were tiny. My husband is an engineer and I'm a former math teacher. We have a lot of calculators at our house. Our kids have carried them around and pretended they were cell phones and used them as, you know, like in their games, they use them as toys. They know how to add 2 + 2 on a calculator just because they figured that out organically. So I don't see a purpose in doing a whole lesson on the calculator. Even if your child is not like mine and they haven't been introduced to a calculator, I don't think kindergarten, 1st, 2nd grade is really like necessary. So, you know, I just skip that and move on. I'm not really sure why RightStart puts it in there. You know, I'm sure they have a reasoning behind it. And I'm not trying to be like a curriculum writer because I don't know anything about writing a curriculum. But sometimes with stuff like that, it does feel like, I'm like, is it truly like an extension of the lesson? Is it truly helpful to the lesson? Or are they just trying to make sure you use more of the manipulatives because you did buy this big manipulatives kit and they want you to feel like you are using most of them every year and getting the bang for your buck? I'm not sure. Personally, I don't care if we don't use the calculator right away, even though I bought it, because I bought this kit for like the long haul, right? With knowing that some of these things would not really be needed until they got older. So personally, for me, I don't need them to throw in a lesson that uses one of the manipulatives just to use it, right? So do with that as you will as far as calculators go. It's just my own personal preference about them. I don't care for them for little kids, and so we skip that stuff. There is one lesson, I wrote it down, lesson 54, take note, not to scare you or to deter you from doing it, but there was one lesson, 54. We got to it. we were working on it. It was kind of a puzzle type thing, but it was like so far over my son's head, and I could do it if I sat down and just plug and chug with the numbers, but he was struggling with it. And so I was like, what in the world? This is crazy. So I went to a Facebook group that I'm in where there's other RightStart parents, and I did a search, you know, in the Facebook search bar about that lesson, and came upon another thread, and then have since, now that I'm aware of it, seen several more threads. Everyone struggles with this lesson. Everyone is like, this is ridiculously hard. Why are we doing this? So different people have different approaches to it. Some do use the calculator and for that lesson and have their child use the calculator to calculate it. Some of them will break it up and have kids do, like, it's like this long list of problems, right? And have them do them as warm-ups over the next couple of lessons. Some people will just take that and make that the lesson for several lessons, and some people just skip it. I was on team skip it. So that one lesson, I don't know, it was hard. It was just a hard lesson. I think it was meant to be like kind of a fun challenge puzzle type thing, but it was just too much in my opinion. So we skipped that. So anyway, I'm going to turn the camera around and just show you a lesson or two so that you can see what they look like. Again, if you're familiar with RightStart, it's, you know, the format is very much the same thing, just different concepts. But just in case you're not familiar with it, I'm going to show you what it looks like so that you can see that. So here's lesson 97 as an example, ways to make $1. Like all the lessons, there's objectives at the top, the materials you need, and then we've got a warm-up. They have a written warm-up in their workbook, and then verbal warm-ups with you. Then you switch to the lesson, talking about different combinations to make 30 cents. And you talk through that. And then their assignment or activity for this particular lesson is a worksheet where they are supposed to figure out different combinations of coins that will make $1. So this is their activity for that lesson. And then of course, there's a conclusion where you review a little bit. Here's another example, lesson 60, that is using the drawing tools I talked about. So objectives, materials, warm up that you do verbally, talking about polygons. And this one, there are explanations down the side giving you explanations that go with the lesson, that talk about some of the tools RightStart provides, even some extension about the Pentagon being near Washington, D.C. So anyway, you have your lesson, and then you have a worksheet where they're going to be drawing using the triangle and the T-square. And then they kind of extend that and learn how to make a star. So that was that lesson. Okay, also I wanted to point out, as you get closer to the end of the book, you have the warm-ups where it will say, do section 3 on warm-up practice 7. These are worksheets in their workbook. So each day has a divided section here, and they work on these on their own. So you've moved from the verbal warm-ups that we did in A, B, and a lot of C to them doing the warm-ups more on their own. So I would have my son work on these while I was working with his little brother on something else so he could get started on this, and then I would check them. And so these warm-ups do a really good job of continuing to review over and over again the concepts that they've learned up till now. And so it's a really good spiral approach that just keeps reviewing it. And then they can fill in their answers, and it should make some sort of pattern in the boxes here. We didn't always do that because he didn't care too much about that, but that's a fun little additional thing you can do. But mostly he would just do the problems. I would check them with him. If we had problems, we'd go back, work on them some more. But it does switch to these kind of more student-led warm-ups later on in the book. All right, and that is that. Again, I love RightStart Math. I love it. It has been amazing for my kids. Goodness, it's been amazing for myself. I have noticed that my mental math is so much better than it ever was. I love math, and I was a math teacher, but that does not mean that I've ever been really strong in mental math. I have not. I've always needed to write it down or use a calculator to help me, whatever, depending on the problems. It's never come very quickly to me. But I have found, since teaching my kids the RightStart method and doing mental math with them, I personally have been able to calculate much larger numbers in my head than I have ever been able to do before. And it's just from learning these methods or teaching my kids these methods. And I see that in my son as well. His mental math ability is, I feel like, very strong. And sometimes I will be like, you know, he'll do a problem and I don't exactly understand how he got to the correct answer, but he got it correct, and he'll show me, and his method may be different from my method, but we're both getting there the same way, which I'm okay with and I think is great. So I am so thrilled with what I see in him and how well he picks up on the concepts and his just overall number sense. I feel like it's really good, which was one of the reasons I picked RightStart. So anyway, overall, yes, we still love RightStart. It's amazing. Level C was great. This was, I think, so far has been my favorite level that we've done. It was just fun. It had more variety than A and B. A and B were fine, nothing wrong with them, but C, I just felt like had a lot more different concepts, more, I don't know, just like I said, a bigger variety. And so it was more fun because you're, you know, changing it up every few days. He loved it. You know, he loves fractions. He loves clocks. He loved the Roman numerals. He liked the drawing. He liked the measurement. Like, there was just a lot of fun concepts in C. So it was great. And, you know, I just think this is an amazing math program. So if you are still researching and trying to pick one for yourself and for your family, I recommend this one. I'll put links to everything below so you can check it out. I also have other videos about RightStart that I'll link so you can check those out. That's it. Thanks for watching. Bye.